Hello and welcome to the Days of Yore. Today I am at the Gerald Memorial softball field, and I'll be talking a little bit about this field and softball here in Nelson. So before we begin, I'll say, as I always do, that I'm not really an expert in all of this, but I guess I'm very closely related to an expert in all this. My dad, Tim McCarthy, of course, has been a part of the Softball Association of Nelson since its inception in 1969. And so I definitely sat under the learning tree there for a number of years. So hopefully I get all my facts straight. But I'm sure, like I say, he'll let me know if I've got anything back to front. So we'll begin by speaking a little bit about one of the episodes that we did and would have aired earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe late last year, about the Nelson Vics and their time in the Miramichi Valley Baseball League. So you'll remember from that episode how in 1925, the team left the league under a cloud of controversy as a result of a game against Chatham, which we were winning before the game was called on account of darkness. So when the game was going to be restarted, it was some debate over whether or not we would pick up the game at the bottom of the fifth inning as it had ended, or if in fact we would just start the game all over again. And that argument eventually led to the Nelson Vics leaving in the Miramichi Valley Baseball League, never to return. So, as I mentioned at the end of that episode, I believe by the 1930s, softball had taken the place of baseball here in the community. There were a number of fields here in the area, and interestingly enough, there are a number of stories that come to us from those times. And of course, the field in Allenville, third base was of course a big rock, as I understand it. So whatever you do, when you're playing there, no matter what the coach tells you, never slide into third. You could get seriously injured. At one point, Albert Vickers was umpiring one of the games. He sent his son home for the rule book. His son returned with the cookbook. So, bit of controversy there, and maybe an unresolved issue as a result of a mix-up in the library at the Vickers home. So we've moved forward just a little bit. In 1952, Father McKinnon had a CYO, a Catholic Youth Organization, a girls team, which traveled about and lost a very close game to Moncton in that year of 1952. By 1969, the Nelson Softball Association was formed. And this kind of came out of a meeting at the church and resulted in the formation of a 4-team after-supper league. Allenville, Craigville, Nelson, and the Birchall Sawmill. Allenville, as I recall, from my research, not from personal experience, were the champions that first year. So we move forward just a little bit more to 1974. And that year, Nelson won the right to represent New Brunswick at the first national championships, National Junior Men's Championships in Ottawa. So I believe right now we'll have a picture of that team up again. So this is the team that represented New Brunswick and represented Nelson at those first national championships. And 2 years later, in 1976, it was us, it was Nelson, here at the Gerald King Memorial Ball Field that hosted the national championships. Just a step back here a little bit. So this ball field is named after Gerald King. And Gerald King was a local educator and a local gentleman from here in the community. Who was again one of the founding members of the association, who in 1971 tragically passed away. And so this field was dedicated in his honor, and in 1976 it hosted the national championships, the National Junior Men's Championships, right here. So there was a bit of a problem when Paul Dawson first announced that he had been successful in getting the bid for the national championships. So you can see in this photograph that the field at that time was not quite as it is today. There was a lot of infrastructure that needed to be put into place, and there was only a matter of months in which to achieve that. Lights needed to be put in, barriers and fencing needed to be erected in order so that this field could be ready for the national tournament. So in true Nelson fashion, the community rallied around and working together to get that work done in the months that remained between the announcement that the tournament would be coming here and the tournament itself. Groups got together, purchased the lights, each eastern fence, did the fencing work, and lo and behold, the ball field was ready when all those teams arrived. So right now, we'll head out onto the field itself and talk a little bit more about that national championship and some of the events that happened thereafter. Here I am in the batter's box on the field, a place where, of course, I'm very improperly dressed, but a place where I spent, a little bit of time in my very short and uneventful softball career. Usually I stood here for about 3 strikes or so. But in 1976, this is where teams from across Canada came to play. And hopefully we'll be able to show you at this point in the presentation some video of the opening ceremonies of the 1976 National Tournament. And so you can see here, hopefully, the Boy Scouts and Al O'Neill leading those teams in. So you can imagine how exciting it was. This is really only 6 years after the association had been formed. And to see the teams from all across Canada coming here to Nelson to play. Imagine how inspirational it was for those younger people in the minor ball program, which started in 1972, to see, again, some of their older compatriots that's now participating on the national level. So again, definitely, if you're a young guy or a young lady in those years, to see, again, this is something that you could do as well, compete on the national level, represent New Brunswick, represent the community here. So that's got to be very exciting. An interesting story is told about that national tournament. The team from Newfoundland came here, and very unfortunately, they forgot their uniforms and they mislaid them somewhere along the trip. Lucky for them, the Nelson team had some uniforms with the big N on them. Of course, that worked pretty well for Nelson, and it worked very well for Newfoundland as well. Though the host team here are at the national tournament, the host team here in Nelson, Pete's Phillies, and I think we have a picture of them as well. Unfortunately, they were out of contention as the tournament entered the playoff rounds, but that the Newfoundland team managed to get that far. And so the stands, packed as they were, and we have some pictures of the packed stands here, as you can see. Maybe not necessarily in the 76 tournament, but again, definitely some packed stands, not an uncommon sight here at the King Field. But the stands were packed, and people were cheering on that team from Newfoundland, singing those great songs from Newfoundland to cheer them on, and with our jerseys on their backs and our songs cheering them on, they won. They beat Ontario, and they won the national tournament here in Nelson. So that's pretty exciting, in kind of a weird way. I mean, maybe we kind of won a little bit too. Like about an eighth or so. You know what I mean? With our uniforms, we're bringing them a little bit of luck. So yeah, that same year, Eddie Feiner, the famous, the famous pitcher who came here with the king in his court, came and played Pete's Phillies. He's in a special game. Here, there were so many people, as a matter of fact, they were sitting inside the home run fence. Now, Pete McLean, the coach of Pete's Phillies, did talk to Mr. Feiner and say he was kind of worried. He had all these people sitting inside the bounds of the field. Well, from what I understand, and Mr. Feiner said, you know, that don't you worry about it. I'll tell my guys not to hit that far and you guys won't have the chance. So there you go. So in the years that followed, many teams graced this field. So that, again, in league play, in national, provincial, and Eastern Canadian play, all the way through to the end of the present day. I spent a little bit of time on this field myself. My brother and my friends were a little bit more successful than I was, and again, really enjoyed the times that we spent here. Right now, on account of COVID, the field is a little bit more silent than we would like, but you know, we're hopeful for the day when softball action returns here in its many forms, and grateful, certainly, to the gentlemen and the ladies who have pioneered softball here in this community for the last 50 plus years. So I think we'll leave it there. The Gerald King Memorial Softball Field, a place where any number of memories were made, and I'm sure many more will be made in the years to come. So, if you're interested in this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you want more access to exclusive content, be sure to have a look at the Patreon options in the comments below. For the Days of Yore, I've been Dr. Sean McCarthy. Thanks so much.